Saturday morning right here at www.theupliftlive.com. Now be sure to check us out on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. as we review the top news stories of the week important to the African American community. So once again, that's the review, 10 o'clock every Saturday morning right here with Dr. Robert Ashley on www.theupliftlive.com. And a great Saturday morning to the Uplift Live family, and we welcome you once again to the review. I'm Robert Ashley, and it's a Saturday morning right here in Dallas, Texas. And I'll tell you what, God is good. God is on the throne, and we thank God for this radio station. Now, you've got to tell at least 10 people. You got to tell at least 10 people today about www.theupliftlive.com. This is the best, newest, greatest radio station serving our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We're not only local, but we're global as well. And once again, I'm Robert Ashley. We continue to thank God for giving us well over 30 years of broadcast journalism right here in our Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we continue to thank all of you for being with us here on a Saturday morning. And what we do here on the review, we review the top news stories of the week. And this past week, my goodness, the Supreme Court ruled on affirmative action. Now, also, we found a very disturbing story coming to us out of Florida. Now, some of you already remember A.J. Owens. That was the black mother who had confronted this white woman in Florida who they basically had been calling her children the N-word, throwing computer laptops at them, cracking laptops, injuring children. And when that black mother went to the home of this white woman, this is the white woman that shot through the door, shooting and killing Ajika Owens, A.J. Owens, and we've come to find out that murder charges will not be filed. They're going to file manslaughter charges. And this is a kind of a startling, interesting backup off of that situation, because a lot of people are really upset about this black mother being shot through the door, and this white woman who initially was arrested on murder charges, well, they've decided now they're just going to charge her with manslaughter, meaning that the punishment, even if she's convicted, will be a lot lesser. And then we continue to think about the children who were with A.J. Owens at the time of her shooting death, standing there to watch their mom get shot. Now, also, going back to the Supreme Court, our guest is going to be joining us this morning. We're going to dissect this situation in terms of affirmative action. Now, many of you may not know that the state of California, big time Democratic, so-called liberal state, California, they did away with affirmative action years ago. I think it was Proposition 209, where the citizens of California voted to do away with affirmative action. Now, the big question is, this affirmative action question, who is it going to impact most? Typically, the African American community. But it was the Asian community who went forth and said, well, look, I'm being discriminated against because I can't get into Harvard. I can't even get into schools down here in North Carolina because I'm Asian, even though my grade point average is just as good as anybody else. But what happened here, because the Asian person basically was discriminated against because they were Asian, saying we got enough, we've met our quotas in terms of Asians. But the Asians, of course, had great scores and everything like that. So therefore, because I guess these universities discriminated against the Asian community, now the black community has lost a tool in terms of trying to make sure people have a place in these universities. And when California did away with affirmative action, the absentee rate of blacks and Latinos in those classes in California went up by 50%. So it shows that affirmative action did guarantee certain slots there, if you will. But when the Asian community came up and said, hey, we're making 4.0, we're doing this, we're doing that, but yet you are discriminating against us. And that's one of the major things that a lot of people were really, really concerned about, is that the Asian community might have been victimized because of the grade point average and all that kind of thing. But in the long run, African Americans who have traditionally been discriminated against and were the last hired and the first fired, it seems like because the Asian community wound up being discriminated against, now the African American community will suffer as a result of affirmative action being turned down. But now, on the same point, there are those who say, well, how long did you want affirmative action to go on? How long will you forever be the victim of racial discrimination? Now, some people say, well, being victimized by racial discrimination, that's something that's going to happen for the rest of our lives. As long as you got black skin in America, a country where institutional racism was indeed a part of the founding of the country. But even if you have a black president who doesn't have the gall to come up with 40 acres and a mule. I mean, this is a criticism of Barack Obama. Dr. Michael Eric Dyson criticized Barack Obama when he did not appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court. Even though we do have a black woman, Ketanji Brown Jackson, on that Supreme Court, it took Joe Biden to do that. But Barack, why didn't you do it? Why did we have to wait a whole nother administration to get a black woman on the Supreme Court? But then again, you have a lot of black folks in positions. A lot of them are gatekeepers. They can do this, they can do that. But that's one of the issues that we'll be talking about this morning regarding the Supreme Court making that decision regarding affirmative action. Now, of course, Ketanji Brown Jackson, the black woman on that court, had a different opinion than Clarence Thomas. So it shows that black folks are not monolithic. Every black person doesn't think the same. And the sooner we realize that, the better perhaps we'll be better off. Because there's a certain amount of black folks who say, okay, yeah, we had affirmative action. We had it in the 1970s up until 2023 here. That's well over 25 years or more. And it seems like the civil rights community said, well, just open up the door. I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open up the door. Let me get it myself. Now, some of you may recall that was a song by James Brown. I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Open up the door and let me get it myself. So now, after affirmative action all these years, has the door been open? Are we qualified to walk through that door and be just as competitive? Test scores, test results, understanding, coding in terms of computer language and all that stuff. Are we just as educated? Are we just as brilliant as those Asians who are walking through that door that didn't want race to be considered? Now, if we were going to forever say, well, this race that, how long do we do that? How long? And I remember Bishop T.D. Jakes, want to shout out to the bishop. I'm a proud member of the Potter's House there. And now the bishop preached a sermon years ago called Forever the Victim. And what he was saying in that, sure, we've been victims of racial discrimination, our ancestors here, ancestors there. We were promised 40 acres and a mule. So what? We had a black president, still didn't get it. You got Joe Biden talking about this. He ain't signed no executive order bringing forth 40 acres and a mule, but yet he sent at least $130 billion over to Ukraine. I mean, just let us have about 500 billion. Now, if we just had at least 500 billion, we could spread that money around to what, more than the 25 or maybe 20,000, 30,000 African Americans, $5 billion. You can easily divide that up. Everybody have a good cut there. Nice little chunk of change for your bank account. But ain't nobody thinking about doing that because there's a lot of disrespect for the black community. We have been used as tools and pawns in the game. A very distinguished pastor in this community wrote a book about that. And I guess until black folks began to wake up and realize that there's a two-party system. And I can recall hearing the late Comer Cottrell, who was the founder of Proline. And Comer, whether it was a Democrat or whether it was a Republican office, Comer Cottrell says, in the black community, we need to have somebody at the table always. We got to have somebody at the table always. But if everybody's voting Democratic, nobody's voting Republican, no blacks are in the Republican Party to bring forth that interest, whether you agree with it or not, at least you're at the table. And that seemingly was the common sense thinking that I think we have lost in this generation as we look at our new congressional leaders, as we look at new mayors and everything like this. And then when you look at a lot of these major United States cities where black folks have literally taken over, look at Chicago, black police chief, black mayor, black sheriff. Look at New York, black mayor, black police chiefs and all that stuff. I mean, not to diss our own people, but have we failed? I mean, can anybody even conceivably talk about the possibility? Have our black leaders failed us as a community? Is it time to reassess what's going on in the black community? Is there ever a town hall meeting to ask the black community, do you agree with the LGBT agenda? Do you agree that gays and lesbians should be a protected class, just like black folks are a protected class? And maybe that's why the Supreme Court ruled this week that a Christian web designer, did you hear that story? A Christian web designer who basically had refused to make some sort of a website for some gays and lesbians, homosexuals, because as a Christian, she did not agree with that. So as a Christian web designer, they went to her, basically, literally trying to force her to violate her own Christian ethics. Now, some people might say, okay, well, you violate your Christian ethics, you're discriminating against the LGBT community. Well, if the Word of God discriminates, um, what's the LGBT community going to say about that? So either way it goes, the wheat and the tares growing together, God's going to do the separating. Don't go out there and hate nobody. Don't go try to beat somebody up. And then, in terms of the LGBT community, the transgender community, and you'd have to really understand the Tavistock Institute, because we've been researching where did this whole concept of transgenderism, where did this concept come from? Well, it's called the Tavistock Institute. That's a think tank out of London, and it goes back to the 1930s, the 1920s, during the Adolf Hitler days when they were really coming up with all kinds of formulas regarding white supremacy. But either way it goes, the Supreme Court ruled this week that a Christian web designer who just happened to be a white woman who said, well, look, I don't want to design a website for gays and lesbians because this goes against my biblical faith. And if I were to put my talents to that, then I'm basically endorsing sin. So the Supreme Court ruled this week that white woman who was a computer web designer who happens to be a Christian, they upheld her rights to reject being forced to do something against her Christian standards. Now, it's a really, really sensitive issue because if the gay and lesbian community didn't like it, they didn't like it. They did not like it. That's why it all wound up into the Supreme Court. But if the Supreme Court had forced this Christian woman to do a gay and lesbian website against her own morality, then we would lose religious freedom. So the Supreme Court, seemingly to a great extent this week, upheld religious freedom, which may be viewed as discrimination in the LGBT transgender community. And we certainly understand that. And of course, as a Christian, our Bible says that the wheat and the tare grows together, and God himself is going to do the separating. That's why we encourage you, don't go out and hate the LGBT community. The Bible commands that we love one another. And you have to keep in mind that these political issues, I've got people who say, well, politics has nothing to do with morality. And then on the other hand, people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and others say, well, morality has everything to do with politics. If you were to search the history of this nation was founded as a Christian nation. But I think I've heard Barack Obama on many occasions say that we're no longer a Christian nation. But then, Mr. Obama, we can understand why you would say things like that. You and Bill Clinton and a lot of other Democrats who ushered in some questionable issues regarding morality. Where did the June LGBT month come from? Did it start with President Clinton? Did it start with President Obama? Is this considered to be a sin in the eyes of God, or is that part of the religious freedoms that we have in America? But the Supreme Court ruled that you cannot force a Christian web designer to basically go against her moral standards and design a website for you. And see, there are other web designers who say, come on, LGBT community, bring that business over to my company. I'd be glad to do an LGBT, a transgender website for you. Just come on over to this business. Whereas the Christian lady was saying, look, I don't want you coming over here trying to force me to violate my moral standards. All right. Well, once again, you're watching and listening to the review. Brother Robert Ashley with you here on a Saturday morning. And of course, there he is, the one and only, the Reverend Melvin Brown. Now, he's considered to be our spiritual advisor right here at www.theupliftlive.com. And once again, we continue to encourage our pastors, our ministers, preachers, and teachers. This is a growing radio station. I want to thank Deontay and Chrissy. I was listening to you guys this past week. I was listening all morning there, and thank you for the information too, about how hot it was, because they were talking about when you go to one of these theme parks, is the water at the theme park, when you got 102-degree weather temperature, is that water hot in the theme park? Are those kids out there sloshing around trying to cool off in hot water? My goodness. So Deontay and Chrissy, we thank you for that. That was kind of funny. Listening to y'all talk about the hot water at these theme parks. But Reverend Brown, I want to say a good Saturday morning to you, sir. How are you, Reverend Brown?
God bless you, my friend. I'm doing well. Thank you for your professional and your eloquent voice in our community. And it's always a blessing and a privilege to be with you.
Amen. Well, Reverend Brown, once again, we want to continue to thank you, sir, for your participation in this program. And just real quickly, Reverend, tell us a little bit about your background, because I think every time we have you on, we dive off into these issues. But you've done, you're an accountant by trade. I mean, you're one of these kind of guys that you get in that room and you're going to count every penny. You got to know where every penny is going. And I've always admired accountants because being able to count money and do fractions and all that kind of stuff. But tell us about your background. You work with Promise Keepers and all these great folks. And I mean, at one time, I think you were almost employed over there at Potter's House, or my pastor may have tried to hire you.
Very humbly, I'll state that whatever I am because of who God made me. And
Yes.
I grew up in a family of 10. We shared, briefly about this. My father was a industrial worker, and he was a pastor by vocational.
Mm-hmm.
You grow up with the idea that I'm going to be somebody, but I never really aspired to be in the spotlight. I was very faithful to the church, providing music, and I fell in love with accounting some kind of way. So I did pursue that for my education, and I've worked for companies such as Lockheed Martin, DynCorp International, and the bank, Capital One Bank. So I do have a great love for business and for counting money. Dr. Ashley, I'm really trying to point to where I can count my own money.
Let's see now. Take for example now, if there are businesses or people who need the services of an accountant, are you available?
Yes, I am. I'd be more than happy to share a little information how you can reach me. You can reach me through email, which is MELBROWN.
Could you repeat that one more time?
Yes, sir.
Could you repeat that email address one more time?
Yes, it's Mel Brown 1958 at iCloud.com.
Beautiful,
Feel
beautiful.
free also to call me if you would desire for more of a personal consultation. You can reach me at 469 849 849 9676. Thank you.
I think that number is kind of chopped up there. Maybe project a little bit louder, Reverend, so we can hear that number one more time.
Okay, 469 849 9676.
All right, that sounds great. That sounds great. Now, real quickly, what does an accountant do? I mean, do you help businesses keep their books in order, keeps their taxes in order? What's the role of an accountant, real quick, so we can dive off into the Supreme Court ruling on yesterday, over the weekend, this past week?
Accounting involves the primary function of bookkeeping, first of all. So bookkeeping would be more of a simplistic record keeping of money coming in and money going out.
Mm-hmm.
More involved in terms of making transactions to the general ledger, which equates to a balance sheet, and therefore you get into the analysis of the money. So I've done a good number of years on the financial analysis side, and etc. I do help with income tax preparation. So that's dealing with the local government, state of Texas, as well as the federal government, the IRS.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Well, once again, if you're just now joining us, I'm Herbert Ashley, and you're watching and you're listening to www.theupliftlive.com. Well, theupliftlive.com, a brand new online 24-hour gospel radio station. At the times that we're living in now, we encourage you. As you're going throughout your day, you may hear some sort of a news story that may upset you. Tune into the gospel. That's what I've been doing here lately. And believe me, just listening to some of the good gospel music, some of the personalities right here on the Uplift Live, it will help you get through your day, because we're facing a lot that's going on. Once again, Reverend Melvin Brown is with us. And of course, joining us now, the one and only, the legendary former Dallas NAACP president, Arthur Fleming, who is now a columnist with the North Dallas Gazette. And this young man, I hope and pray that he will eventually, after he writes maybe 12 or 15 more of those columns, will put them in a book, because I think he is a young modern day prophet here in terms of how he's prophesizing what's happening with the civil rights community. And once again, going to say good morning to you, Arthur. How are you this morning, man?
Good morning. Good morning, Reverend. How y'all doing?
All right. All right, doing pretty good. Well, we've just been kind of talking about Reverend Brown and his background there. And now, Reverend, you also at one time, did you work with Promise Keepers and Bill McCartney and all those folks back in the day out of Colorado?
I was very fortunate, Dr. to live in Denver, Colorado at that time. That would have been 95.
Yes.
I was hired on as a consultant, and immediately they gave me the first project that I did was to distribute $1 million to rebuild 92 churches.
Beautiful. Beautiful. My goodness. Yeah, we remember Promise Keepers, Dr. Tony Evans, and a lot of people at the old Texas Stadium. That's where the Cowboys used to play there in Irving, Texas. But let's go to Mr. Arthur Fleming, one time president of the Dallas chapter of the Civil Rights group called the NAACP. Powerful, powerful organization. We've had a big Supreme Court ruling just this week, Arthur, with regards to affirmative action.
Mhm.
Now, you know, this is a complicated situation, Arthur, because it was the Asian American community, to a great extent, who brought this lawsuit against Harvard and I think a college in North Carolina. This Asian kid who wanted to go to one of these colleges, he had a great grade point average, but they had met the so-called quotas of how many Asians could be in the program. But yet, when it comes down to affirmative action in terms of Black people, Ketanji Brown Jackson said this is a setback for the Black community because we were the ones who were truly victimized by race in terms of the history of it. Whereas Clarence Thomas came back and said, well, today's 17-year-olds haven't had to have a Jim Crow experience. But yet it seems like this ruling, Arthur, has put us almost back in the back of the bus again here. What's going on with this ruling, man? Because a lot of people don't like this ruling.
Well, first, let's be clear about that. Now, you know, in my article, I think it was, I talked about the fact that I talked about Lena Leo and them and how they had the deal set up. This is a classic. There were no Asians complaining. Okay, there were no Asians complaining. This is that supreme capitalist money. I'm telling you about the dark money they got together with one of these mailbox companies that they have. They passed this issue to it, and then they drove and got before the court. There was not an actual person, Asian person, standing there saying, hey, we need you to change this. Again,
Initially.
A period.
Yes.
Because it don't be initially, and then if it wasn't initially, then it wasn't ever. Okay, because I'm saying it came from this system that I'm telling you about. And it also has the added advantage of divide and conquer, right? Now we want to talk about the Asians. Hey, you know, why y'all do that? And they going, we didn't do that. So I'm telling you what's going on. They didn't do that. These people did this, and I'm telling you what they're doing. And you and I discussed it. Basically, what they're doing is with demographic shift. They know the demographics changing. Mm-hmm. They're basically creating laws that's going to benefit them when they become minorities. That's really what they're doing.
Well, let's go back now, because when we talked about it yesterday, you made the excellent point that initially the Asian community did not want to move forward with this. Initially, they didn't want to move forward with this, and then this dark money group that's seemingly going around using the money to influence all these organizations. Did they go out and recruit some Asians? How? Because I saw one of the young men standing before CNN yesterday, who they claim was the Asian that they found to go forward. But what's the background to it all?
The key word is what you said. You said the Asian one. Really? You did all that for one? And that's what I'm saying. Look, the game's being played. That's all I'm telling you. And I'm telling you that that's going to see more of that. They did more legislating from the court. These guys, through this system, there doesn't have to be an actual person or organization, or what they have an organization. Mm-hmm. But behind the issue, and then they present the issue through the court, through friends of the court, amicus brief, what they call it, and then from there, the court do their conservative thing. Mm-hmm. The only thing that we got really to hang our hat on, that we have to really, and we got to double down, triple down on this fact that is that they kept Section 2, which means that they can't gerrymander on the basis of race. Okay. Hey y'all, that's all we got, because they're coming for the rest of the affirmative action stuff. And I was telling you about, okay, they did the same program. It was a lady, the lady in the LGBTQ issue. Okay. Yes. First of all, when the case was filed, she didn't even have a company. Nobody asked her to make anything. But they got with one of these front companies that I'm telling you about, presented it before the court and said, well, if I would, right? And then they went through all it and they changed because of somebody ifing. Okay, now if you're gonna start changing laws behind folks, well, if I do this or if I do that, then before, you know, and again, like I said, they started with the LGBTQ. Okay, well, okay, we don't want to do it for you. Okay, well, we don't want to do it for you because you black. Well, we don't want to do it for you because you look like you gay and black.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So now who's gonna regulate that? Okay, if Robert show up and they decide, Robert, you look gay, I'm not gonna serve you. Okay, and now what you gonna do? So I'm saying,
if they're just basing it on my looks, but see
exactly.
now, but this case here is not dealing with looks. This case was this web designer who claimed she didn't want to violate her Christian ethics by making a gay related web.
The key word is claim. The key word is claim. And I'm telling you, yeah. See, okay, I guess you, and because I know you don't. I'm just saying this. You know, unless you believe that all of a sudden that their hearts have changed overnight and they are now are pure and even, and they're gonna make those kind of judgments. I don't think so. I don't think so. Again, if I can discriminate against you for being LGBTQ, then I can say you are LGBTQ, even though you're not. Now, how you gonna prove you're not? How you gonna prove you're not? And well, you know what? Well, your honor, they look gay. No, they black. Well, yeah, but they look gay and black. You know, so I can't. I'm telling you, it could get nasty real quick. That's all I'm telling you.
All right, now, Reverend Brown, I don't know if you want to weigh into this because this young lady, whether they went out and found a company or not, the Supreme Court ruled that Christians have a right not to be forced to violate their Christian beliefs when it comes down to the whole LGBTQ issue. And it seems like, I wonder, I mean, if they really wanted a website author, and Reverend Brown, aren't there other web developers that could have did that for them? Why
That's my point. They didn't have a company. Nobody ever asked them to make anything, and they passed the law.
So in other words, they have perpetrated a hoax on the Supreme Court
through that dark money scam program that I wrote about. That's how they did it, and they did it again.
Okay. All right. Now the ruling itself says that a Christian cannot be forced to do something against their religious beliefs. Is that your understanding of the bottom line?
How do I know you're a Christian?
Because I'm going to the court professing that I'm a Christian.
Okay, so now I got to believe that.
Well, if I'm giving a sworn statement, which is a technical.
But what if I believe you're a racist Christian?
Well, if there's something to indicate that, then let's bring it out.
Okay, well, where do I go?
But the what ifs in court doesn't. It's not a what if. It's not a what if matter.
Well, what if got us here? Okay, and I'm saying, what if got us here? Now we're here. Now you're telling me I can't use what if?
Well, Reverend Brown, looking at the bigger picture here now in the body of Christ, this is viewed as a victory that the LGBT community, who's been, in some opinion, they've been trying to force this lifestyle down the throat of the American people. And even with the so-called Pride Month celebrations, I've been watching some video of Pride Month celebrations all over the country, and to see grown men out there exposing their genitals to children, and children leading these LGBT gay pride parades, carrying American flags and these LGBT flags, and the men dress scantily. Now, typically, this would have been a felony if it was just a regular day, but according to the law enforcement officials, when they have these LGBT parades and they carry on and do all this, what some call perversion out in public, then they get a pass for that particular day. But the Supreme Court said that a Christian web designer can't be forced by the LGBT community to violate their Christian ethics. Is that discrimination, or is that religious freedom in America?
I love the question.
I know Arthur don't like the question.
No, I like it. I like all of them.
All right, I'm gonna come back to y'all.
I've listened very carefully, Mr. Fleming. So he's very convicted in his beliefs, which is great.
Yes.
I would just say, in answer to your question, religious freedom is one of the first tenets of our Constitution. So when we mix it up with race, we mix it up with economics and politics, like you said, it's real nasty. But I applaud the lady that said, no, I'm not going to do this, because we have the right to decide how we're going to do business and what our convictions are.
Mm. I tell you what, gentlemen, hold that thought. Although let me pause for a quick break here. All right, once again, we're off and running here. You're listening to The Review with yours truly, Robert Ashley, right here at www.theupliftlive.com. And once again, go to Google Play, go to the App Store, and download our app. It's called Uplifted Now. That way you can take this great 24-hour gospel music station with you wherever you go. And I really want to continue to thank the staff here. Y'all have been making me laugh all week long. As a matter of fact, I was out there working in the heat, doing some yard work the other day, and I'll know better than to get out there trying to challenge myself more, because this heat can zap you. So if you're going to be celebrating the 4th of July, please be careful. But right now, we're going to pause for a quick break and then continue this conversation right after this. And we welcome you back to www.theupliftlive.com. I'm Robert Ashley, and we thank you once again for being with us right here on a Saturday morning. Now, be sure to tell a friend about this radio station, www.theupliftlive.com, brand new online gospel radio station. As a matter of fact, we want to continue to thank many of you who have voted in the Avidity Awards. The voting ended June 30th, which was, I think, just yesterday. But we have been nominated for the Internet Radio Station of the Year. And of course, one of our colleagues, Brother Minister Jermaine Simpson, there has been nominated, if you will, for Internet Announcer, Radio Personality of the Year. So if you haven't voted, the voting is already ended. But we thank those of you who did indeed vote. And we'll be watching to see who's going to win the Avidity Awards. That's going to be coming up a little bit later on this year in the 504, New Orleans, Louisiana. But right now, you're listening to The Review. I'm Robert Ashley, longtime journalist here in our Dallas-Fort Worth area. And of course, used to be there on Heaven 97. And also, you can find us online with the Dr. Robert Ashley Show. And of course, we got the Robert Ashley channel. We're taking advantage of social media. And, I'm trying to determine whether or not I even want to get back into the game of doing hard news or maybe working for some of the other TV stations. But God is leading us at this time. We're still working on our book, too. We've got a lot of things that's going on. But right now, we're talking with the Reverend Melvin Brown, considered to be our spiritual advisor, one of our spiritual advisors right here on our talk show, The Review, and also Arthur Fleming, longtime civil rights activist here in our Dallas-Fort Worth community, former president of the Dallas chapter of the NAACP. We have been talking about the Supreme Court ruling this week, gutting affirmative action. And of course, we have two Black Supreme Court justices. Clarence Thomas had one particular opinion about it. Ketanji Brown Jackson had another opinion, showing that the Black community is not monolithic and that we don't all think together as one. And then we were talking about the Supreme Court making that decision regarding the LGBT community, indicating that this white woman who was a Christian web designer basically had a free speech not to produce a website that violated her religious rights in terms of being a Christian, advocating something that she didn't believe in. But on the other hand, there are many who say, well, look, that's open discrimination against the LGBT community. If they're doing it against the LGBT community, who's going to be next? Now, the Black community has fought discrimination for quite some time. And then the affirmative action ruling by this particular court, some saying is a step backwards. But on the other hand, there are some who are saying, well, look, we've had well over two decades of affirmative action. The door is open. If you're qualified, you can walk through that door, get that job. But others are saying, well, no, they're going to look at your skin color. You're Black. You still need every tool you need in order to make it in this society. All right, now coming back to Arthur Fleming. Now, Arthur, you have been in the civil rights community, and you have a very, very distinct knowledge of all of this stuff that's going on here. And I really appreciate you sharing it, because I remember covering you when you were president of the Dallas chapter of the NAACP. I think you were even a lot more progressive than a lot of these elected officials who wanted to control you, sir. Now, you've been writing a column with the North Dallas Gazette. What are you going to tell us about this Supreme Court ruling, and anything you want to reflect on in any of the other rulings, or if you want to go back to the LGBT discussion, just wherever you want to pick up on?
Well, Ketanji Jackson, her response to the affirmative action ruling, she said, yeah. And I'm paraphrasing. She basically said, "Okay, colorblindness for everybody, right? Okay, everybody colorblind now. Okay, Ralph Ellison, you didn't write that book. The
Invisible Man.
Yeah. You didn't do that. So basically, what I'm just saying is that, again, that's the problem. The problem is, again, they addressed something that wasn't happening. They used a fake dummy company with dummy people, with billionaire Rand, to get the issue to this court. So the fix was in. The Alito, they came out yesterday, his wife, right? She done, she had some oil leases, and the folks had business before the court. 5-4 decision. Alito wrote the decision. Mm-hmm. Hey, y'all, that's straight up thuggery. That's thuggery. So
who appointed Alito?
I think it was George Bush. I think it was George Bush, the old man.
So Alito had the same kind of problems that Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas, taking money from the Harlem Crow here in Dallas, is billionaire. Did Crow have any business before the court? They claim he didn't.
Crow's a part of this program I'm telling you about. He's part of the Leo program. Mm-hmm. So this is a group of racist billionaires, right? Who I'm telling you, okay, like right now, and there's the National Black Newspaper Association.
Yes.
They're having their meeting. Where's that, Rob? It's up in where? But anyway, they have.
Is it in Washington, the nation's capital?
Yeah, I think it is. Anyway, they're having their, they're having their Congress right now, mm-hmm. And basically, Ben Shavers, who's the leader of that organization right now, I've been seeing him on commercials with no labels. Now, no labels. No labels, if anybody want to know, that's these billionaire racist white people, again, in my opinion, who don't like what Trump and them is doing, right? These are more what I call my regular racists, right? Okay, they done went and got with folks like Chavez, right? To put him as a face. They got him as the face of the whole thing, no labels. But you got Joe Lieberman, You got all Scaramucci. I mean, you got all them kind of people that's actually running the thing. So I'm saying, this is they're actually undermining the Democratic Party when they're doing this. They're not helping. So they're pretending, well, just in case, Joe Biden have a heart attack or something, and then we're ready to step in. Really?
What about the Koch? Now, we used to be the Koch brothers, but one of them died. Now, the Koch brothers used to use their billions to influence. You have George Soros using billions to influence. So you're saying that there's some good billionaires out there, and then there's some bad billionaires?
All I know is when they get to talking about Democratic billionaires, I only hear one name. I guess ain't but one billionaire, George Soros, right? But I can name you a lot of those other billionaires on the other side, because Lynn Leo, worked with them. So I'm saying that they got a program that they've been running for 20 years. This is organized like ALEC, like the school book banning. And again, look here, macro, y'all, we got to understand that, again, this is a classic example and Supreme Court participating in it, where they taking all your stuff. I'm to my black people now. They're taking all your stuff. They put it in this one bag, and they got you, and they finna have you vote against the whole bag. That mean they want you to vote against all your stuff, because why? It's mixed in with that LBG stuff. And in the meantime, they're giving themselves some tools that they can use to continue to discriminate against you. Because Robert, I don't care what you say, you look gay to me, and so I can't do business with you. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just thankful that Christian, that woman who's a Christian, whether or not they set the case up, that the Christian, that as Christians, we still have rights in this country, and that nobody.
Should she have to prove she's a Christian? I mean, no. Should she have to say the Beatitudes or something? Should she have to be able to do something to make me believe that she? Because otherwise, the devil running up in here, and he doing what he doing. Okay, now, I'm actually talking. Now, I mean, something.
All right. All we'd have to, in that case, then all I would have to do is say, okay, now courts, Supreme Court, you know the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, you know that story, and as a Christian, I have a right to just as a business person, if I don't have a shirt on, I can't come in here, and the business have a right to reject me because I don't have a shirt.
We're gonna go back there then. We're gonna go back there then. Instead of me bringing my credit card to church, I'm gonna bring you a calf. I'm gonna bring you some chickens. And they're gonna be live too. They can be live. You gotta kill them and everything.
All right, Reverend Brown, come on, now, Reverend Brown. You got to get it back in line, now, Reverend Brown. Now, the woman in the court that did not want to do the LGBT website author says she should have to prove that she's a Christian.
You should just maybe just say I'm a Christian and okay, that's a Christian. No. No.
Come on back in, Reverend.
That's a very interesting statement he's making. And let me frame it this way, if I may.
Yes, sir.
This country has been around over 100 years, 200 years, going on 200 years. Okay? The Bible and God has been around ever. What I'm saying is that we fall under the providence of God Almighty, and spiritual things and natural things sometimes don't make sense. But what I'm trying to say is that unless we have the fear of God, unless we have reverence for God himself, first of all,
yes,
disregard the Constitution and every article in the Constitution. And that's why we got hatred, and that's why we got racism and other evils that come from the enemy. So
wow.
The Holy Bible oversees everything. The Constitution is next. But after that, we don't need to legislate righteousness. We need to learn how to live right, tell the truth, and as you say, love each other. But we love each other from a distance because we're not all going to agree.
Now let's move to another an author. If you want to have anything else to say about the affirmative action and the LGBT, because also the courts rule against President Biden when it comes down to that student loan forgiveness program. Now, starting with you, Arthur, did you look? Well, first of all, did you have any student loans? Did you take out student loans? You paid them all back?
No, I was a veteran, so I didn't have to do this. So I went.
Okay. I went all right. Okay.
But look here. But them same people, they got their PPP loans, forgiven, right? They give out. I mean, and we give out all this free money to corporations.
Wasn't that President Biden who gave out those PPP loans? Wasn't it President Biden that did the forgiveness?
It was on the Trump administration, remember?
But who did the forgiveness of the loans though?
Who did the forgiveness? Yeah,
who forgave those PPP loans?
Who forgave them? The system forgave them.
When Joe Biden was in the White House.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, she had one of them. They forgave them. They forgave themselves. You see what I'm saying? And my point is,
didn't the Biden administration approve that though? I don't remember President Biden objecting.
Okay, so if they did, that means they're being consistent. Okay,
exactly.
So my point is, we have forgiven all kinds of loans. Okay, but for poor people who's in a financial crunch, even though they spent their money to get this education, now they spend a lifetime paying for it. You know what I mean? Which means they can't move forward, but you want to hold them back. Okay, so what's that about? Okay, what is that about? That's about something.
Well, isn't that about preferential treatment to a certain class of people? Because there are a lot of people who paid their student loans back, a lot of them who are paying their student loans back. And then if you want to take, for example, if you want to tax somebody who didn't even go to college to pay those student loans back, is that fair to them?
It's about people with preferential treatment not wanting other people to have preferential treatment. Okay, that's what we're talking about. Preferential treatment, not wanting somebody else to have preferential treatment. The same way with the race thing. Okay, you can be racist for 400 years, but now if you try to do something about it now, oh no, we can't do that because that's racist. Really? What I'm saying is that the logic that they're using is not logic. It has nothing to do with making sense. But it has more to do with making confusion. And then if they can get you on a moral horse, and then remember, and watch this, they're gonna throw your stuff in there with the LGBT stuff. They're gonna mix it up, and they're gonna have you voting against your own stuff. Which is why we're doing Freedom Rise 2.0, because we need to organize our African American power throughout the South, independent of the Democratic and Republican parties, because their priorities and interests are not aligned with what we need, right? We're just like we're the base of the party, but they shame to say we're the base of the party.
Well, see now that's why I think a lot of these leaders were scared of you, Arthur, when you were president of the NAACP, because you think outside of the box, and it seems like you're not towing the line in terms of the civil rights community. Are you some sort of an independent radical or something?
Well, actually, I mean, where's the line? Can you tell me the line? There's a line.
Well, that is where Joe Biden said the line is. Joe Biden said you better work with the Mexicans and don't be trying to worry about his son's laptop. Leave that stuff alone. That was Joe Biden said. Now.
Hey, here, like I'm saying, everybody need to do what they do. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not telling them to don't do what they're doing. Do what you're doing.
Yes,
but
sir.
we need to do what we need to do. Okay, which is something different from what's being done for us. Again, we start doing it for ourselves. And so I think 2.0, organizing ourselves throughout the South, that'll be the first step in doing this. Again, affirmative action, they finna will it down to nothing. So you can't depend on that. So we gotta organize ourselves so we can have what's called scale in business. That means that we can generate from ourselves, right? And so we need to create a scale, and we can do that by organizing ourselves politically.
Well, that sounds like something that the late Honorable Elijah Muhammad the Nation of Islam was saying many, many years ago when it was going around buying foreign land and encouraging the black man to be able to feed himself, clothe himself, and create his own economics. But we have seen that as we desegregated, we kind of desegregated ourselves out of our own independent economics. But Reverend Brown, now that affirmative action has been shot down, weakened, gutted, whatever, what do we tell our young people who are going to be applying at Harvard, who's going to be applying at Stanford? Do they have to now uh, pick up a study habit or just be as studious as Asian students and maybe forget about twerking and hip hop and all that other stuff? Get in those books, because I know that when we were at Grambling State University, they encourage us to be militant academic scholars, be able to walk in there and spank a professor, knowing everything, every question they ask you. That made us want to read every chapter. We had a thirst for knowledge. But what do we say to our young people as they go forward without affirmative action?
That is the question of today. We live in a world that generations propel. They keep multiplying, and so as people, we have to recognize that being people of color, we have a privilege, we have an opportunity. We got to work twice as hard. We have to face the fact we have to work twice as hard, maybe 3 times as hard, the average man or woman, to retain what we have. So yes, we need to improve our study habits at an early age, coming out of elementary school, going into middle school and to high school.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to proven way before we fill out an application for college.
Yes. All right. Now, author, that same question to you. Do we encourage our young people to hunker down? I mean, we know that a lot of them are studying and doing the best that they can, but when they go to apply for a college and get rejected because of a grade point average, I mean, they can't blame that on race. What do we do to offset the fact that affirmative action has been weakened and gut?
Well, again, back to Freedom Ride 2.0, our kids need to see us fighting for them. They need to see us fighting for the futures. They need to see us organizing ourselves, and they need to be a part of that organization. Again, we need to teach them how to fight in this new world. So we need to learn how to use the technology in this fight, organize it for ourselves, right? And so basically, I think that if we do that piece, if we take care of the get them involved in the Freedom Rides and let them help build the infrastructure, for the fight going forward, because they're going to be the ones going to be doing it long term. So we need to leave them some infrastructure to work within.
Yes. All right. Now, also another story that kind of flew under the radar this week. Y'all remember when we were talking about the black woman in Florida who had gone to her white neighbor's home because the white woman had been calling her children the N-word, throwing computers at them because the kids were out there playing. And the white woman, Susan Lawrence, claimed that they were playing on her yard. Well, just this week in Florida, they decided not to file murder charges against Susan Lawrence in the death of Ajika Owens, the 31-year-old black woman who had been shot through the door as she went to the white woman's house to question her about the treatment of her children. Now, the white woman will face manslaughter charges,
right?
But they will not file murder charges. Now, author, what is up with that? Because many people in Florida in the black community are saying, wait just a minute, y'all letting this white woman get away with murder. She should be charged with murder and not manslaughter, because now the authorities are trying to say there's not enough evidence to prove that it was just outright murder.
Well, first of all, remember, you're talking about Florida, right?
Yes, sir. Ron DeSantis?
Yeah, stand your ground and so forth and so on.
Trayvon Martin.
And again, if anybody out there, folks, if you got a problem with your neighbor, okay, if you got problems, actually, don't go on your neighbor's property. If it's really that bad, call the police or whatever, but don't go to your neighbor's property. Because I know here in Texas, once you're on somebody's property, they can waste you like that.
Jesus.
If you come up on somebody's property and aggressive and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just saying that. And then so I see now I'm glad that at least they're doing manslaughter with her. But the problem is because she went over to the lady's property and was knocking on her door and like I say again, and bless her heart, she hasn't been paying attention to the atmosphere of what's going on, because if she would have, she'd heard about them other people that was getting shot, going and knocking on doors and so forth and so on. But evidently she didn't,
Okay.
she didn't see
So,
all
so just knocking on the woman's door posed a threat to her, so she could just
the
justifiably shoot me through the door.
well, the atmosphere that we've been talking about through these Supreme Court rulings and so forth and so on has created an atmosphere of fear. Okay, that's how the powerful here in America, those forces, that's how they keep their power, through fear.
Mhm.
And so because of the fear that's been generated, it's particularly with white folks, they just they got this fear thing. So when they see you, they scared automatically of you just cause you. So I'm saying that, and we have to be aware of the
Mhm.
new atmosphere. Otherwise, you do stuff like what that lady did. She didn't, she wasn't aware of the current atmosphere in America. If she would have been, she would not have been knocked on that woman's door. So I'm saying, so we just got to be more aware of, and again, hopefully through things like 2.0, we can have that kind of information, get it out to people, have them understand, what's really going on, what the dynamics actually are right now. Because a lot of folks still just, I went out last night, I saw folks, partying, doing whatever, oblivious to what the real deal is right now. They're out having a good time. So we gotta interrupt that, dynamic that's in our community. We have to interrupt it, and so we
Right.
have to interrupt it with programming.
All right, now, Reverend Brown, a mother's instinct is to protect her children. And the mere fact that she went over and knocked on the white woman's door, the woman shot her through the door. Um, and I agree with Arthur that we shouldn't do these type of things, but a mother's instinct, it's hard to stop a mama bear when she's trying to protect those cubs.
I agree with both of you. I think the premise of
Mhm.
leaving your property and going to somebody else's property is a obvious mistake. And we cannot let our emotions in any situation drive us to the point to where we violate our own safety. That's the issue. That's the issue. She should have not went over there. Should have made a phone call. She
Mhm.
should have protested in a different way. We got to be smart enough to be able to think of the damage we do to ourselves when we violate our own safety.
And according to the authorities, they were saying that they carefully examined the viability of both second-degree murder charges and manslaughter with a firearm, both first-degree felonies. However, the state basically would have to prove that Lawrence had a depraved mind. Look at that, had a depraved mind at the time of the shooting in order to change that to murder. A depraved mind, also. They're trying, and see, the Lawrence woman is saying that she did not mean to kill Ajika Owens. She did not mean to kill AJ Owens, the black mother, and that she just feared for her life. So that's what we hear from a lot of these police officers who wind up shooting first and find out somebody didn't have a gun. Oh, I feared for my life.
Mhm.
Is that just a bogus claim, or I mean, to prove she had a depraved mind? I mean, you'd have to have a psychological an analysis for that. It seemed like they were trying every reason to find not to charge this woman.
Well, like I said again, now white privilege comes into play,
Oh,
and goes to work. So now she can say I didn't mean to, or whatever. I didn't. That's that. And so that's part of the program that we trying to get past. Because like I said again, no matter what rule, whether it be some of the stuff we talked about earlier, now when mistakes are made, now I see these laws, but I don't see what happens. Where do people go when mistakes are made with these laws? I don't see that. All I see is just a blank law.
hmm.
And so again, we making laws, based on Christianity, where nobody has to prove they're a Christian. And I just think that's disaster coming.
Hmm.
That's a disaster
Wow.
coming.
All right. And Reverend, real quickly, the last word for you before we take this break, because a lot of mothers are out there, and I'm not trying to get in trouble with women, but women seem to be just a little bit more emotional than we men. Maybe that's how God made them, because they use both sides of their brain, the right and the left side. They say we only use one side of our brain, but the emotion of a mother, the quickening of the Holy Ghost, because this could possibly happen again, Reverend Brown.
Well, That's why we're Christians and we're prayerful. In response to something that Arthur Fleming said earlier, prove to me I'm a Christian. Prove to me what right say that we're Christian if we're not living in accordance with the Bible, and if we're not emulating a Christ-like lifestyle. So there's no protection for anybody.
Yes, indeed. All right, I'll tell you what, gentlemen, we're going to get ready to pause right now for just a quick break. And once again, you're listening to www.theupliftlive.com. If you're looking for gospel music, if you're looking for gospel programming, we are the station. We're right here in the great city of Dallas, Texas. And also, we have some interesting sports news to break. Now, for those of you who are big-time NBA fans here in Dallas, Texas, y'all know that Kyrie Irving came to Dallas last year. Did the Mavs re-sign him, or will the Lakers re-sign Kyrie Irving? And once again, you're watching and listening to the review right here at www.theupliftlive.com. And we encourage you now to go to the App Store, go to Google Play, and download our app. It's called Uplifted Now. That way, if indeed the situation over in Russia, Ukraine gets worse, even if they decide to try to invade President Biden's home, because his son Hunter Biden has been making so much big news here, you can tune into gospel music, because gospel is good news and time. And we're going to pause for a quick break, and we'll be back with more right after this.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers. If you administer insulin 3 or more times per day or use an insulin pump, call now and learn how a CGM can help you.
Painless. No more pricking my finger.
No finger pricks.
Convenience. They delivered it free and they took care of all the paperwork.
You can reduce pain right away. Plus, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you spend more time in range. And if you have insurance, you can get a new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. Call now and get free shipping of your new CGM. Plus, we'll bill your insurance for you. 800-824-4596. 800-824-4596. 800-824-4596. That's 800-824-4596.
Do you have Medicare and do you use a CPAP machine? This is a national healthcare alert regarding your CPAP supplies. Using a clean CPAP mask and clean supplies is important to staying healthy. The best way to make sure your CPAP equipment is clean is to get new supplies. If you have Medicare, we have great news. Medicare will pay for you to have new clean supplies every 90 days. We'll even do all the paperwork for you to make sure that there's little to no out-of-pocket cost to you. And you don't even have to leave your home. We provide free in-home delivery. So if you're a CPAP user and you have Medicare, staying healthy with new CPAP equipment is easy. Just make this free phone call right now to get started.
Sponsored by Specialty Medical. 800-262-0318. 800-262-0318. 800-262-0318. That's 800-262-0318.
Hello and God bless you. Dr. Robert Ashley, the host of The Review, a talk show starting at 10 o'clock each and every Saturday morning right here at www.theupliftlive.com. Now be sure to check us out on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. as we review the top news stories of the week important to the African American community. So once again, that's The Review, 10 o'clock every Saturday morning right here with Dr. Robert Ashley on www.theupliftlive.com.
Your number one hit music gospel station. Preach. Keep it locked right here on The Uplift.
And we welcome back to www.theupliftlive.com. I'm Robert Ashley, and we thank you once again for being with us right here in Dallas, Texas. And tell a friend now about this radio station. And of course, we're here for you. It's 24/7 gospel music, theupliftlive.com. Once again, Google Play, PlayStation. The app is called Uplifted Now. Download it on your phone, just like I've got it right here on my phone. And that way, if I want to be in my car while listening to some great gospel music, I can just click, boom, there it is, the Uplift Live. I also want to continue to shout out to the great staff here, Deontay and Chrissy in the morning. A great program. They're a husband and wife team It reminds me of back in the day when they had Jimmy Avant and Cupcake Dora. And of course, that led to the one and only brother Joe Bagby, formerly there with Heaven 97. But now we have the Uplift Live. God is doing a new thing. And of course, we're using this modern technology. And once again, look for the Robert Ashley Show on social media. We do all kinds of interviews and our news perspectives on things. But once again, we are honored to be with you each and every Saturday morning right here at www.theupliftlive.com, located in beautiful downtown Dallas, if you will, right next to, I think it's Cocktails and Kitchens there. A lot of great folks there. Even met the owner of that restaurant, a young brother who's an international lawyer. And I think he's even bought that whole block in downtown Dallas. Black folks buying property all around the state of Texas. As a matter of fact, I saw another story the other day about CEOs in Fortune 500 companies, black CEOs. Those numbers are going up. So despite the fact the Supreme Court and some of the opinions gutted affirmative action, we are still talented. Our talent can speak for itself. We were just saying, open up the door. I don't want nobody to give me anything. Let me get it myself. Now, there are those who still feel that there is a need for affirmative action and that racism will continue to exist and institutional racism will continue to exist. So what? But it's much better now than it was maybe 40, 50 years ago. Of course, with me this morning, Arthur Fleming, a longtime civil rights official right here in Dallas, Texas, and also now a columnist with the North Dallas Gazette. Now, we encourage you to read Arthur's columns because he's very, very challenging in some of these columns and using big words like fascism and what woke means in terms of the conservative media. What are they saying when they say the community is woke? Is that a reverse? Oh, black racism, anti-black, and all this kind of thing. And also with us today, we have the Reverend Melvin Brown, a great man of God there, an accountant by trade, now Luke was a physician. I don't know if the Lord Jesus had an accountant with him that kept up with the money and everything like that. But once again, we are honored to have these fine gentlemen with us. Now, Arthur,
when he
Pilate. Pilate was a crook. Wasn't he a crook, man?
It was Matthew. Matthew was the tax collector.
Matthew was a tax collector. Okay.
And Judas,
all right. Huh?
License. Judas didn't have a CPA license.
Okay. All right. Now, look, another big story that happened this week, y'all. Now, you all know that the black community really supported President Biden. Now, we know that Donald Trump is facing all kinds of indictments, and Trump is going to be so tied up by the time the elections get here. Whoever in the Democratic Party, whoever came up with that strategy, Arthur, tied Trump up legally so he might not be able to run. We certainly commend you all for coming up with that kind of strategy. Maybe it was the brilliance of Barack Obama, who they say really is running the country, in light of the fact that Joe Biden can't stand up. He trips and falls. And now, Joe Biden, we have to admit, he's a senior citizen, and we're not making fun of him. He's been around for a long time. Now, the concern, Arthur, is this whistleblower from the Internal Revenue Service. I'm getting scared for President Biden because those Republicans who are controlling the House Ways and Means Committee, the Republicans who are controlling some of these other committees, they're trying to subpoena the president's bank records. They got these whistleblowers running around here saying that Hunter Biden, that Merrick Garland, our attorney general, did not want them to come up with the information that they found in their investigation. And it seems like they're trying to impeach President Biden. Now, for those who supported President Biden, how should this be interpreted, Arthur? Because we see all the stuff going on with Trump, the indictments there, and he's basically legally tied up. But are they trying to do the same thing to President Biden?
Well, first of all, we're talking about tripping and falling. Folks, now I know you remember Gerald Ford.
Oh, don't make me laugh.
Come on now.
That was a classic fall there.
No, falls. He kept falling. He kept falling on the golf.
They played that on Saturday Night Live back in the day.
Okay, so Joe fall one time. Gerald Ford fell the whole time he was in there, and then he failed on top of falling. But anyway,
well, that's a good one.
Again, we talk about this from time to time because you bring it up. But basically, I'm gonna say the same thing I've always said.
Yes,
where's the proof? Where is it at? I hear the allegation, but I never see the stuff. And so it's another one of the situations where you never, and again, you would think after if you do the same thing over and over again so many times, you would think people say, well, you know what, let me get off this. I mean, I know I'm a hamster on a treadmill, but let me get off this treadmill right quick. So I keep going around. I'm just saying, I'm in the same place when I stop every time. So what I'm saying is, until you and again, for these hypocrites be doing that, but homeboy got $2 billion. What's in Jared? He got $2 billion, right? You got all this stuff going on with, Ivanka got trademarks from China. I mean, all kinds of stuff when they was up in there. And so I'm just saying, it's just hypocritical to hyperventilate over a laptop that has nothing to do with national security, has nothing to do with the economy of America. It has to do with the moral fiber of America. Now, and if you're going to talk about that, you gotta go deeper than Joe Biden. You gotta go way deeper than that. And I'm saying that, if you're going to talk about that in earnest, and you like to say both sides, you got to go deep on the other side, real deep, because you got to have, you got Christians, quote Christians, that love the devil over here. So, so what's that about? What's that about? And then that same Christian decide they're going to do some things with Supreme Court, and I go back to my point again. How do I know you're a Christian? I ain't heard you say no Beatitudes.
Okay, but can you answer the question about the whistleblower by the name of Gary Sharpley, who was one of the top officials in the Internal Revenue Service? Are we do we take that whistle? Do we? Can I ask my question first?
Okay, but where's he?
The question is, do we take this whistleblower's comments seriously, or is this guy playing politics?
Hey, if you don't see him, if you don't hear him, how can you take anything he says for anything? He's a nobody. I don't know him, and I'm looking for him. Okay. So where's he at? And if you find it,
he was all over the media. He appeared on all over the media, CNN, everywhere.
Because I'm all over the media and I ain't seen him. Now I've seen stories about they can't find him. Now I've seen that all over the media. Where is he at?
He's saying that they were trying to refer criminal charges against Hunter Biden, and that the Attorney General Merrick Garland stopped the Trump-appointed prosecutor from going forth.
Yeah, I know. And the 2024 elections is next year, and so all I'm saying to you is that we should be guided by facts, not by the shiny objects. Because again, that's part of the whole thing, keeping us confused about things, get us off the issues of what we know we need. All that right there compared to what they did in the Supreme Court, it means nothing. It means nothing. We need to be focusing on what happened in the Supreme Court, what our America's going to look like, what we need to do to secure our rights and freedoms on our own. Joe Biden's son can't help. The laptop can't help me with that. The laptop can't do nothing for me. Is all I'm saying. And so we need to stay focused on things that mean stuff. That's means stuff for the community, right? It has to be germane to the community. Otherwise, I ain't got time like that.
Well, all the crack cocaine and Uzi machine guns that we covered back in the 80s and 90s and the early 200s, all the crack cocaine, Uzi machine guns, all the gangs being armed and dealing crack cocaine. I remember interviewing Freeway Ricky Ross, the real Freeway Ricky Ross, who made about $5 million a day dealing crack cocaine that came from various officials during Democratic and Republican administrations. So I remember talking to a lot of black mothers. I remember talking to a lot of black mothers whose sons got lots of years for gun possession, crack cocaine. I can think of Kodak Black. You can think of Wesley Snipes. Mm-hmm. They had guns just like Hunter Biden had guns. Kodak Black did about 3 years. Wesley Snipes did about 3 years. They got on that laptop. I mean, you've seen the big big rock of crack cocaine, and Hunter just sitting up there smoking it. Also, you've seen pictures look like children are in these pictures here. And all I'm saying is, Joe Biden is supported by the Black community. He is really, really supported by the Black community. Should we continue to vote for him in light of all of this? And when Black community members, we got folks in jail right now as a result of crack cocaine possession, Uzi machine guns. But Hunter, oh, you're talking about white privilege. Is that the definition of white privilege, author? Or can you even say that and remain a good Democrat?
Well, let me just say this. First of all, you ain't a Democrat. You're a black-crat. What it amounts to. We can't here. Black folks see that kind of what do I here's moral do I, okay, that's what white people do. Black people, we have always voted for the least racist person. We always have, Robert. We didn't vote for the most moral. We've always voted for the least racist person. Nothing has changed as far as us doing that. And for us to be sitting around talking about, well, Biden, they got some, should I keep voting for him because I think the laptop that has nothing to do with. I hope we're more sophisticated than that.
Okay.
Now, there's white people. The white people, that's what they do. It's right. Well, you know what? I don't like him, or I don't like. They don't know nothing about it, but I don't like him, or I don't like her. So I'm saying that we can't do that. We can't afford to play that kind of game with our vote. We can't play like that. We can't go like that. We can't look for somebody that's pure, because there is no such a thing. So for us to be trying to make somebody pure when we're not pure, I think is just the wrong thing to do anyway. But I think we need to be pragmatic like we were in this past election and they got Joe Biden in. Okay. And we're going to be pragmatic again. We shouldn't be sitting around talking about who we like. No, It's about who's going to allow you to move to the next space and what you're trying to do for your community, not who you like. So again, I don't like everything Biden doing, but you're not going to like anything anybody's doing.
Right. So, and Reverend Brown, and coming back to you, Reverend Brown, in light of the fact that there's the allegation and the shell companies that were created in the Biden administration, and they're saying that possibly $31 million may have come from the Chinese or the Russians. Now, we Black people, we live in the United States of America as well. And if the Chinese and the Russians have compromised our president, who we voted for, is that something we should be concerned about? Should we be trying to hold Democrats to a higher moral, ethical standard? Or do we just let Democrats run around and do what Donald Trump has done?
I think the standard is the same for both Republicans and Democrats. And I think what we can do, aside from pray, we pray first. Sometimes we talk before we pray. Yes. And that's what gets us into trouble. So if we pray first with some guidance from the Lord, and then we get involved, like Fleming has done for many years, get involved. Sitting on the sidelines is not the solution. So we need to be involved in accountability of our leaders and making sure we vote. And we're at the table, like you said earlier when you first started this broadcast.
Amen. Now, our phone lines are open if you want to call in at 214-239-2898. That's 214-239-2898. Now, author, here's another issue. We're getting ready to celebrate the 4th of July. And that, of course, is the Declaration of Independence. Now, we just recently got through celebrating Juneteenth, which is now a national holiday. Now, some people are saying that Juneteenth is the real Independence Day for Black folks. When we got word that the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed, we'd been freed from so-called institutions of slavery. But on the other hand, with the 4th of July, there are a lot of Black folks who said, I'm not celebrating the 4th of July. I ain't got nothing to celebrate. You're still shooting down Black folks. Police officers are getting away with murder. White women are getting away with killing Black mothers and things of that sort. We've got inflation now that's basically going out of the roof. We're paying a lot more, maybe $750 a month more under President Biden and his economic policies when he first got in there and signed all those executive orders and reverse the economy that Trump had. Now, whether you like Trump or not, at least things were a lot better under Trump before COVID-19 and all the lies that have come out about that situation there and how that's been used. But author, will you be celebrating the 4th of July? Or is it the 4th of July?
Well, I'm in the tradition of Frederick Douglass. He said, celebrate the 19th of June, from the 19th of June up until the 4th of July. So So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to celebrate up until the 4th of July again, and then I'll listen at his speech on 4th of July, where he can
I,
preach
you,
everybody
you know,
why.
that is so profound, because I was just reading that speech from Frederick Douglass, and Frederick, that was the reason why I asked that question about the 4th of July. And Arthur, I did not know you, man, you are well read to know that Frederick Douglass didn't like this thing, man, good grief. Can you just repeat it one more time? Because a lot of people don't know that Frederick Douglass, who was a Republican, but yet he was a radical Black Republican.
Well, I hope everybody knows who Frederick Douglass is. He, one of the greatest civil rights journalists and abolitionists and so forth that we've ever produced. And I tell people now, and they say, "Well, how much freedom do Black people have?" I said, "We got as much freedom as Frederick Douglass had." So, how much is that? So basically, but what we learned from him is that he spoke truth to power then. He articulated what he saw then and gave it to the people straight up like it was, with no sugar on it. And I think that's what America needs right now. They need to be given everything straight, where they can understand it. Let's not pretend, right? Because pretending ain't gonna it's not gonna help us. Again, in my article I said African Americans were in an abusive relationship with white America. We're in an abusive relationship. And so we have to understand that and know that but we are progressing. And for my white friends, I like to say, we can all evolve together. We can evolve to another space from where we are right now, right? Abuser and the abused. We can evolve. So the ones that won't evolve with us, then come on, let's go do that. But everybody not going to evolve with us, so we have to understand that part too.
Right. And before we go to Reverend Brown with that same question about the 4th of July and reflecting on Frederick Douglass, but Arthur, who is our modern day Frederick Douglass? Do we have a modern day Frederick Douglass who's speaking truth to power? Is it the Reverend Al Sharpton? Because Jesse Jackson was out there at one time. Ben Shavers, who's head of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. You have Ben Crump, the very distinguished Black Attorney General of the Black. Who's the modern day Frederick Douglass, or do we have?
Well, this movement, kind of like the movement back then. This movement is decentralized, and by that I mean we don't have like a Martin Luther King or a like that. And I think that and again, that's what I'm saying, how sophisticated our politics is. I think we evolved like that, looking at what is happening when we did that in the past. When we did that, like I remember when the thing happened in Missouri, a white guy came on my page. He said, "Well, what Black people need to do? They need to just get one leader." And I said, "Yeah, so y'all can shoot him." You know what I mean? so basically, this movement is what I call decentralized. So you got Tatiana Coates, you got the 1619, my lady that did that. You got Greg Carr. I mean, you have a lot of we have a lot of voices, right? That's speaking from the education we've acquired over the last 40 years. From before the computer, we used to go to the library and study. The ones that want the information. And so now it's more. So now the environment, and that's space where the environment has changed to our advantage. So we need to take advantage of that. So we can do some things. We actually have more power, like you said, but we have to recognize it.
And Reverend Brown, are you celebrating the 4th of July, or is that our Independence Day, or was Juneteenth our Independence Day, or is there even any need to try to codify an Independence Day for Black folks, in that our history is very distinct in this country?
I think we should appreciate our citizenship. Being in this country, we live here. We don't live outside the United States. So I will be celebrating. If you notice, I purposefully dressed in blue and red, not to distinguish political affiliation, simply to say I thank God for allowing me to live in this beautiful country.
Yes. And also there was a story out of Mississippi that I was hoping to get to. There was I think it was 5 white cops in Mississippi who have been arrested for continually violating the civil rights of Black men. Maybe we can get to that. maybe next week. But that was such a horrible story out of Mississippi, where these 5 white cops repeatedly had been doing all sorts of things to black men. Let's see here. Let's see. Deputies fired after lawsuit accuses them of torturing black men. That's in Mississippi. And let's see. Now, Arthur also here in Dallas, Texas, real quickly. Okay. Let me ask you about 2 other things before we go off the air. Now, I don't know if y'all saw that story about Reuters. This was Reuters news agency. They did this study on the elected officials who came from slaveholders. I don't know if you saw that, Arthur. I think we may have talked about that.
I saw it. Lindsey Graham on there. But go ahead.
Yeah. Now, the fact that they said that a lot of our Supreme Court justices, members of Congress, the Senate, and the House, and our presidents came from slaveholders, including Barack Obama. Now, Arthur, this report said that Donald Trump did not have slaveholders in his family.
Yeah,
did you believe that? I mean, that's what the report said.
Yeah, because they're from Germany. They're from Germany. He's a German. He's a German. He got Hitler on his resume.
Oh, oh my God! Because they didn't. They should have put that in the report. I wonder why they didn't put that in the report. Because they tried to make it seem like everybody came from a slaveholding family, including Barack Obama, except Trump. But they wouldn't put that in there about Germany.
No, he came from Germany. He's part of that. He's part of that thing right there. So that's what they,
Now, did Trump did they change? Because I think I read something indicating that their first name was Drump, and then when they got to America, they changed the name, trying to hide the German accent.
It was like it had an F in front of it. It was like Frump or something like that. Frump.
So he did change the name when he got to America.
Yeah, they changed their name.
Oh my goodness!
And that F, and that F could have stood for a lot of things. That's all I gotta say.
Stop it, Arthur. All right. All right. Excuse me. Reverend Brown, did you want to chime in on that report from Reuters magazine indicating they did a study that all of our presidents came from slaveholders with the exception of Trump. But as Arthur pointed out, and I had read that history too, that Trump actually came from was it Germany?
Germany,
yeah. And they were trying to make it in the report seem like Trump was the only one that didn't own slaves. But Arthur said he had Adolf Hitler. A part of his legacy. I mean, we'll have to check that to make sure that that's true too. Now, I mean, because there were a lot of Germans who were opposed to Adolf Hitler, and then there were some who were for Adolf Hitler.
Okay, their family came over. Like in like after the turn of the century. His granddad, and it's recorded, got arrested at a Klan rally because he was Klan back then. So they got that history in their family. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay, so they don't get a pass. They don't get a pass.
No.
All right.
Let's see. He didn't own slaves, but if he was here, he would have.
Now, see, they didn't say anything. Now, I think there were some black folks that may have owned some slaves too, but maybe we'll have to look into that history another time. But Reverend, you got any thoughts about slaveholders? And maybe that's what
I have one simple statement. Hopefully that really expresses my sentiment, my conviction. That is, Arthur said it earlier. We don't have a Moses.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a leader out front of us with the dream like King had. We were very fortunate to have it for a while. But what I will say this is that we all are in this together. And the song that was written about lift every voice gives us a freedom to feel that we can do some good for the world that we
live in. And last,
Reverend, say it. Reverend, you the dream. You the dream, Reverend.
All right. Now, also, now this is a big sports question. Yesterday, the Dallas Mavericks signed Kyrie Irving to a 3-year contract worth about $126 million, Arthur. Now, that's NBA sports, $126 million. He's going to be here for the next 3 years playing basketball. So are you Dallas Mavericks going to have a championship? Or that's a lot of money to invest $126 million, Arthur, for 3 years of basketball service.
Well, again, any money he can get, he deserves it, because that's kind of system we're in. We're in a capitalist money system. Mm-hmm. So anything he can get, he can get it. But just learn the lessons that he learned so far.
Right.
And
right.
Try to understand that just because he's a basketball player with a lot of rights that me and you don't even have. But you know, he has to understand that he still operates within a system that can play with his money and his mind.
Yes, and we've been ask Kanye West and Reverend. Some of your thoughts about that $126 billion contract for Kyrie for 3 years, $126 million.
I'd say a good place for him is that church at the Potter's House, where he can pay his tithes and do some good for the community.
That's interesting. All right, well, gentlemen, let's see now. Arthur, before we leave, want to thank you once again, man, for spending time with us, and also tell us about your column, where people can read that column, because, man, like I said, you're doing some incredible writing there, and we got so tied up in these issues. I seem like we got to, maybe we have to start off talking about the column next week.
Well, I write for the North Dallas Gazette. This past issue that's out now has to do with the fact the Civil War never ended. And that my position is that we are all, and that's anybody in America, but I'm talking to Black folks, we are proxy warriors in this current battle. And so we have to understand that as proxy warriors, we have some powers that we can exert to the situation. So we need to understand that we're not powerless in this situation. So trying to give us some ideas on what we can do.
All right.
Again,
Reverend Brown. And Reverend Brown, a quick word from you, sir. And we want to thank both you gentlemen for being with us. And also, we want to continue to make sure now that you stay warm. Stay cool, because it's hot out there. And also, maybe we'll talk with State Representative Carl Sherman pretty soon, Arthur, because I found out he was trying to author a bill to get air conditioning in these Texas prisons, because I've gotten a report that a lot of our people who are in prison here in Texas, many of them are cooking. And I don't know if anybody has died as a result, but there's a real tragic situation.
Two people died already.
Oh, God. Because of the heat in Texas prisons, where they will not install air conditioners, and they got what, $30 billion sitting in the rainy day fund?
And so, okay, so where's my politicians? Where's my folks that deal with that? Why?
Well, Carl Sherman had a bill that he was trying to get through the session, but they wouldn't support it. But Reverend, last call for you.
God bless my brothers on the broadcast. Let's celebrate with dignity, with honesty, and much love.
Peace. All right. Well, once again, Arthur, we thank you so much for being with us. And of course, Reverend Brown, we thank you for being with us. Of course, I want to thank also our Uplift family. Continue to listen to this great radio station 24/7, great gospel music, great programming here, a lot of great personalities, the Radio Rob and everybody here. And we want to continue to thank Dion and Deontay and Chrissy and just the whole staff. And we thank all of you. I'm Reverend Ashley. We'll see you. Want you to have a blessed day.